Hi guys. So your target for today is that you can annotate a section of literature to show critical thinking. Please read chapter 8. Wow, 8 and annotate. What's up, by the way? The ducks are there obviously because John is in the hospital. If you haven't read chapter 8, you can stop this, come back, read chapter 8. Because I'm going to be going over annotations in a minute, and so your assignment for today is that you're going to, in Google Classroom or on your email, so I'm going to try to give you guys the link to make your email so you guys can actually converse with me if comments is more difficult. Email tends to be easier, I think, if you want a solid response. If you want to still stick with comments, it's fine, but I think this also would be a great time for you to just set this up because if you didn't know, we are now officially online school for the rest of the year. So this will be good. So choose one of my annotations or your own and explain why it is significant. So if you made annotations, you can use one of your own if you would like. I do not mind. We're also going to roll through my annotations. So for this part, examples of things that it might answer in your why it might be significant is like, does your annotation relate to a theme? Does it impact the characterization? So does it show Johnny Boy, that's a new one, Pony Boy or Johnny growing or changing, and is it symbolic of something? Okay. So if we go in to chapter 8, there's a couple annotations that I made. So you're going to see all the ones in yellow. So if you want to steal one of mine, you can do it. But I wanted you to be able to do your own if you are annotating, which made me super happy. So for example, for this one, something that this whole entire chapter deals with is the theme of death. So death is quiet and scary to young people because especially the 2-bit is something that you might notice. If you want to also make that a characterization of 2-bit, I don't mind. So it's talking about the quietness of the hospital, and it's talking about how they went in on tiptoe. And then we have this section on his hair. You can talk about that. We've talked about his hair. Hair is a symbol of something. I want you to probably guess if you're going to do that one. But it's pretty easy, I guess, to then say, like, I'll just tell you, but like it would be their identity. It's like who they are. That's why when they cut their hair, it was so sad because they're greasers. So their hair is really important. So we also then have the book, Gone with the Wind. So this section was significant because if you didn't know, Gone with the Wind, if you haven't seen the movie, it's like a really long movie or read the book. It's a Civil War book. So it's a symbol of exactly what's going on between the greasers and the Socs or the Sox, whatever we're going to call them. So that's part of the reason why it's significant. And then it also is a connection to Johnny, because if you remember back when he originally got it for him, he didn't remember even mentioning that he like wanted it. And then it shows just kind of like their friendship. But it also shows how inevitably he doesn't actually finish the book. So it's kind of like their friendship got ended early, if you want to say, in a weird way, or at least Johnny's life ended a little early. Like it never had an ending to begin, I guess. There's no resolution for it. So that's another option if you're looking through my annotations. This kind of talks about extending what we're talking about here. And this is also an interesting thought because it's repeated somewhere. I think we'll get there. But okay, moving on to this huge little section is grief and death theme. So we're talking about theme still. It also talks about the fear of vulnerability that the boys have because they don't share emotions in order to look cool. So we've seen this several times now. I honestly feel like we probably can go every couple of chapters where he's not trying to cry. Like we spend chapter 1 when he first gets jumped and he's trying not to cry. And we have Johnny and talking about whether or not he cried. And so this has been a theme throughout the whole entire book is you can't really show like any emotion, especially if it's one that makes you look weak. So that's really an interesting concept if you're taking annotations with me. So that's one thing. And then it also talks about over here, like growing up on the streets. So obviously you learn to cool it is basically what it is. But there we go. So he kind of is not cooling it though. We then have him seeing his mom. So this was the repeat. So they've said this twice. So it doesn't really cover it in this section, but if you want to tackle on that one, you can, on why he's repeating that no one can get on with Johnny. And then it's talking about this is with his mom, how he doesn't want to see his mom and it would kill him to see his mom, which talks about who his real family is. And it also talks about whether or not like their relationship with authority is why it is the way it is. If you want to go deep into like parents representing or an absence of parents representing the way that you handle authority, which might be really good if you're thinking about theme. So, there was an earlier section in here where it's literally because they're both outsiders, because they're technically part of the same crew. Even if they hurt each other, they're actually okay. Okay. So this is about the switchblade. So we've seen the switchblade. It got us into the problem in the first place. But inevitably, we have the foreshadowing of why he has the switchblade, because the last time we saw the dang switchblade, not this specific one, but Johnny's switchblade, we had the violence and the, I guess, in an essence, like, there's a couple things it could represent, honestly. I put revenge in this case, but more so, I guess you could go with violence. And then it even talks about if you're looking about the way we've talked about symbolism for Dally and for a lot of these guys, violence is part of their pride and joy. Like they not really like, it's not like they love violence, but they're all really not like, backing down from this rumble. So whether or not you want to view it as violence or if you want to view it as some sort of other possession, I'd be interested to see. But I think that this is a really telling section for what it is. It's your showpiece. He doesn't even really use it for violence, I guess, because he says he usually takes out a plain pocket knife. But there you go. And then he's going to use it for revenge, and he puts it under his pillow like he's sleeping with it. Okay. So this is a section on family. Okay, so if we're talking about characterization, look at Ponyboy go, okay? He's actually understanding his brother Derry. They've had this breakthrough, and now he's talking about how Derry has to become a parent and how it's probably stressful on Derry because he was never a parent before. And then even then it's talking about how Derry, like, is in this situation almost because he has to be, but also because he is sorry for him, but at the same time, he is part of the gang, and that's important to him. So it shows him at least understanding and empathizing with Derry. This part is kind of a foreshadowing, probably, but goes back to why is 2-Bit pretending several times that something is not going to happen. What does this suggest, I guess? What does this at least suggest about what we've been talking about, where we now know that Ponyboy is kind of eyes open into this not having any solution, into this being a cycle that's going to repeat over and over and over, and almost seeing how destructive it is. And that's why Ponyboy's like, something's going to happen. And I mean, like, I got a bad feeling about this. And then, like, we have 2-Bit who's kind of like, yeah. And he's kind of ignoring it. So if you want to talk about the cycle of violence, that's a dope section for that. He's not scared. He's just sick of fighting Bob. So Bob was his buddy. So this is another moment where Ponyboy starts showing like a relatability factor, where he's not just thinking like, oh no, like I know who it is because this is Cherry, and we know who Cherry is. Cherry's Bob's girlfriend, was Bob's girlfriend. And so he's relating to the two best friends that he knows, so Soda and Steve, and going, well, what would happen if like the same situation happened on our side? Like, can I relate this to like people in my own crew? And he kind of does. And then we have this section where she says she won't go see Johnny. And this goes to another theme in this, which is people are complex. Also rings resemble violence, but people are complex. We have known Bob as this like aggressively horrible character, but he also like, because he attacks Johnny, and like it's not like you really, I'm not saying in a bad way, but you don't really miss him. But now you're seeing that she's like deeply upset by his death. Like several people are deeply upset. Like Randy's talked about how Bob was important to him, and Cherry's now talking about how Bob was important to her. And so it's almost this moment of like people are complex. Like you can't just like write somebody off as bad and then not care. And he also then is able to kind of, he gets a little bit like a butt for a minute, like for being honest. And then he finally kind of realizes he's being a butt. But he talks eventually about sunsets. So we've seen sunsets several times. So we know that sunsets then like represent, because both sides look at them and they think that they're beautiful, but it's like both sides. So it's talking about unity and connection between them two, which then also understands why Cherry and Ponyboy, and like more so, not all of them, but are the people these kind of offline characters, because even she's talking about he's a little bit different from everybody else, are able to see how unity and connection are like off in the distance. This is also ironic that it's coming in this conversation where they're talking about Johnny versus like he's kind of upset about it, because it's also a point of connection, sunsets, between Johnny and Ponyboy about what is temporary or is beautiful. And it kind of also then talks about whether or not, when we're talking about them both looking at it, is they both see things that are fleeting and beautiful. And then this is this one I actually had to think about for a minute. So he randomly goes, "You dig okay," and then it says she had green eyes, and it made no sense. And then he went on, but if you remember at the beginning, not was it paragraph one? At least in the first book, I think it was paragraph one where I found it. He's talking about how much he hates people with green eyes, and it's like so arbitrary. Like, I don't like green-eyed people. And you as the reader are kind of like, okay, something must have happened, like where he like just doesn't like people with green eyes. But you know he likes Cherry, like not in a great way, but at the same time, it's this moment of he has like this mutual kind of relationship and respect with her, and he realizes that she has green eyes. So looking back, it's almost like you can't just view people for either like greased hair or the color of their eyes. Look at where that could point to. So those are all the annotations that you would be able to see. If you made it to the end of this video, I'm going to get you in with a secret mystical thing. Sign off your email with the word penguin. Okay? If you sign off with the word penguin, I will give you an extra point on your trial assignment, because that meant that you watched my video, and I'm really proud of you. So include the word penguin. Yeah, I know I'm playing this game. But either way, it should be right here. So go into instructions and annotations email. The PowerPoint's already there, and the penguin's there to remind you. But yeah, if not, I just need you to make sure that you complete your Netflix and drill for this week. And then if you haven't turned in and you're part of the jury, your jury assignment, please do so. If you're in the jury as well, you totally have until Friday. So don't worry. You have 2 days to get all of this done. I do not mind. Thank you.